Well, we're joined now by Oded Ailam, a former director of the Counter-Terrorism Center of Mossad, Israel's national intelligence agency, currently a researcher at the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much for joining us on BBC News today. Let's begin then with what further insight you can give us into the intelligence gathering that went into that targeting of the Ayatollah on Saturday.
Well, Anita, naturally I cannot go into any sort of confidential details, but I can say a few things in general regarding that. You know, in the modern theater of shadow warfare, the most powerful weapon is not necessarily the missile, but it's maybe a line of code, hackers, but backed by people on the street. And this is a very important thing to remember. You know, what we have seen in this amazing strike in Iran was not just sort of a lucky break or a momentary glitch, but an accumulation of layers and multi-layers of years of intelligence cycle, which means while the world had seen only 40 seconds of kinetic strike, this is the result of a merely, I say, decade-long marathon. Now, the biggest challenge when you are approaching a thing like that, as, for instance, penetrating cameras and things like that, the biggest challenge is to stay under the radar and to be in a place where the host cannot identify any digital footprint of yours. And this should be sustained for a long time, and it's quite a challenge.
We're seeing reports, for example, of traffic cameras being hacked to establish patterns of car movements, for instance.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for this certain technology, you know, it has also limits. And the limit is that you always need to have the human person on the ground that will assist the technology and combine the surgical method and the high-tech, sophisticated technology with what we call the human factor.
Were you surprised, though, given the military build-up in the region, that the Ayatollah was in a building that could be reached by bombers, that could be penetrated by those bombs?
Frankly, I was quite surprised by the lack of security that one should expect in this situation. But nevertheless, we've seen them across the board acting that way. And so, in a way, it goes together with their pattern, as we have seen in the recent campaign.
Why now, in your opinion? Technical talks were due to continue. We just heard with Marco Rubio there a lot of questions directed as to whether it was Israel or the US that went first with this.
I am absolutely sure it wasn't Israel who went first with this, and I'm certain that America was the key leader of this campaign. But
why?
The certain time that was picked was due to circumstances, and of course the fact that the top echelon of this evil regime was condensed in one place, and one cannot miss this opportunity.
What do you think Israel wants to see emerging from all of this? And does, in fact, what Israel want tally with what America wants? Because we heard President Trump in the Oval Office a little earlier, talking about let's see what the people do. We had some people in mind who might take over, but they're dead. There was another group of people, they might have been killed. So, there was no clear direction in what the president was saying about what he thinks should happen the day after.
I think it's for Israel, it's very clear, and there's even the slightest doubt. The only way for the world to be a safer place is a change of this evil jihadistic regime. No other way. You cannot, as Churchill said, the appeaser cannot feed the crocodile hoping that he'd be eaten last. No way that you can come to terms with this regime that slogans death to America, death to the Israel, and lately also Britain, death to Britain. There's no other alternative but a change in the regime. This is not will happen in a second. It's not going to be the Syrian style where the Julani people were on a Toyota SUV charging towards Damascus and the fall of the regime. No, we are talking about completely different arena and theater, but eventually we are seeing now, as again Churchill has said, the beginning of the end.
You mentioned Churchill. President Trump was comparing the British Prime Minister rather unfavourably to Churchill a little earlier, as I'm sure you're aware. What's your thoughts on the UK's position? Because we've heard, for example, today that UK jets have been acting in defence of the skies above Jordan and Qatar, to name just two places.
You know, it reminds me of history at April 1940, where the German army had marched into the Western Europe and in few weeks took over Europe because the European people were thinking that maybe we can come to terms, maybe we can negotiate, maybe we can appease or something. That won't work. And I think that Keir Starmer is doing a mistake, not joining this historic moment in a very, very aggressive joining the attack, not just on the defense level. I think this is his reluctancy to do it draws also a moral line regarding the place of the UK in the fight against evil.
He and President Macron of France and others are questioning the legality of the action, aren't they?
I don't think there is any question regarding the legality. Let's not forget, this regime, this fanatic regime, had 458 kilo of enriched uranium to the level of 60% and 2.5 tons of uraniums of 20%. And they were absolutely going forward in their strive to create a nuclear bomb. And you can just imagine what happened if they had possessed a nuclear bomb and become a nuclear entity. And of course, we can see their very negative role in Ukraine, supporting the Russian with ballistic missiles and drones. We have seen them spreading terror and horror around the world since the beginning, since 1979. And we saw them using all sorts of proxies from Venezuela to Beirut to you name it. And I think this is a very, very moral and clear attitude that there's no place on earth for this regime and no way to come into some sort of an agreement with such a regime.
Yeah, and I'm imagining we're going to hear more of that discussion involving various world leaders, aren't we, as the days go on. I just want to ask you one final question, if I may. Your thoughts on how long this war, this conflict might last. At the moment, clearly, we're still seeing the Iranians attacking multiple countries in the Gulf. And of course, they've sent drones as far as Cyprus as well, haven't they? How long do you think they can sustain that? How long might this last?
I think every day that passes, and I really hope that NATO will join in multiplying the air power and force. I really hope it will happen because it will definitely shorten the period. But every day they are decreasing their abilities to strike their neighbors. They are decreasing their abilities regarding the ballistic missiles and drones. And what is more important, every day that passes and symbols of this regime are being annihilated and being down to gravel gives more, I would say, a bravery to the people in order to start do what the Iranian people should have been done long time ago, is to topple this regime.
We are out of time, but thank you very much for joining us again on BBC News. Oded Ailam from the Jerusalem Centre for Security and Foreign Affairs, former Director of Counter-Terrorism at Mossad.